Hello, everybody, and welcome into the 58th edition of Texas Longhorns Live here every Monday for you. We really appreciate you guys being here. Again, hit that like button and subscribe down below. We are trying to catch our rivals at the Oklahoma channel. I think they're like 1,500 to 2,000 above us right now, so trying to catch up. We've got a no, we cannot have that. They can't beat us in anything, guys, whether that's subscribers, football field, softball. Can't let them have it. So please hit that like button and subscribe. A lot of recruiting news went down this weekend. That's why it's also titled Felix Ojo Fallout. So we might as well just hit on that. So I'm going to run down this situation for anyone that doesn't know. So Felix Ojo visits Ohio State May 30th. Well, let's start out first on Texas Tech, actually, April 25th. Everyone always forgets about that. Michigan, June 6th. Texas, June 13th. Utah, June 20th. Obviously announces his Final Four July 1st for the decision being July 4th of Florida, which weird because he didn't even visit them, Michigan, Texas, and Ohio State. It was reported that it was going to come down to Texas and Ohio State behind the scenes. That's actually what Felix Ojo told them privately, which we will get into that because that's a whole big deal. And he commits to Texas Tech on July 4th, which wasn't even in his Final Four. Pete Nako's actually reported, I just read this, but it was 3 days ago. He broke down the deal, 3 years, $5.1 million, but then he broke it down yearly, $1.2 million the first year, $1.6 million the second year, and $2.1 million the third year. So, Gerald, I was all over this. I witnessed it. I saw him put the Texas hat on. I thought he's going to Texas. About 10 seconds later, he throws it off. What was your thoughts about just the situation as a whole?
Yeah, there's one of those spots where like there are like three distinct like thoughts I have about it. Like one, it starts with like, I am not the one to like get mad at team spending, right? A Texas fan getting mad at a team spending is ridiculous, right? Like Texas Tech views Felix Ojo as a build around defensive or offensive tackle, right? We view him as a build around left tackle. And so they paid him like it. Like that's what it is. I think it was surprising for a lot of us to see them kind of come out of nowhere. I mean, Texas Tech really, they seem to be pushing a lot of their chips in the center, and that's fine. Like, I am not pocket watching. You never catch me pocket watching. That is broke boy behavior. And Texas fans, we do not get to have that type of mentality because Texas does it just as often as anybody else. It's just weird to be on the other side of it, right? So like Tech paid him, honestly, what the going rate really is per year when you look at it, somewhere between like 1.5 and 2 mil for a build around left tackle. So like that's what Tech did. And that's what, how they saw him. That's how the coaching staff saw him. That's what they did. And so that's part of the game, right? Don't be mad that a team spent, be mad that your team got outspent, right? That's how I always talk about it, right? Your team either didn't have it or didn't want to have it. And that's really the case. I don't love how it went down with him specifically. I think there's a reason why, if you're believing, depending on the rumors, that Texas coaches kind of pulled him from the board after the way it went down. Because, if you're reading the message boards and the guys who actually have sources, right? Matthew and I don't have sources, but the sourced reports basically said like up until the day of, like he was telling Texas that they were in a good position. He saw Ohio State, they were in a good position, right? All the while having this deal on the table with Texas Tech. And again, that's part of the game, but like, it's not a great way to go about it, I don't think. Again, if the hat ceremonies are fine. I'm not like one of these old heads, like, don't do the hat ceremonies, but telling Texas they're in it, having a great relationship with those Texas coaches, telling them they're in it up until the day of, and then using them as like the hat toss fodder in that situation kind of sucks. And I think it's part of why the Texas coaches pulled back from it. So I don't love that part of it. But again, he's a 17-year-old kid. He's like one of the youngest players on the board. So like 17-year-olds getting, advice, good, bad, or indifferent, are going to do stupid things, right? It is what it is. And then the third thing, like my thought is like, Texas Tech is pushing their chips all in. Like they're really going in on this class and trying to buy an elite class. And that's not, I don't say buy as like shade. That's part of the game, right? Like revenue sharing is legal. This was part of the deal with Felix Ojo. It's like there's some revenue sharing on the table. And so like we're finally going to have, I think, another data point. We saw Texas A&M a few years ago. Now Texas Tech is getting in on it. We're going to have another data point to see, can you build a cohesive recruiting class out of one that is heavily NIL driven? And I'm really curious to see how that turns out.
Yeah, so I'm kind of on the same page as you, basically, of I don't care if he puts the hat on, throws it off. That doesn't really bother me. Choosing Texas Tech because of money doesn't bother me. And I think it's actually cool now that these deals are out in the open, because I think beforehand, like we saw deals and we always assumed, oh, they're a lot of money. Like this is a lot of money, not saying that. But I thought it was going to be 2 to 3 million. It's what I've learned is always trust the lower number on these because it's still a lot of money, but it's basically $775,000 a year. Still crazy amount of money guaranteed, and then incentives built in every year. And I don't think now that I've heard other people talk on this, like Jeff Ketchum, Bobby Burton, we're talking about guys on the Texas roster, there's probably only 4 to 5 guys making that sort of money. So it's kind of hard to pay that as a freshman coming in, and he's not going to play right away. So I see that, but I completely agree with you. Like behind the scenes, you can't be lying to the teams that have been recruiting you this whole time, putting in time, putting in money. Because guess what? It isn't free to fly you down to Austin, put you in a hotel for 2 to 3 days with your whole family, go out to eat. I mean, that probably costs in itself 50 grand just for a whole weekend to do all these things with you. And then telling them, hey, we're coming here at this time where we're going to Ohio State. Because that's what he said. I'm down to those two. Behind the scenes, like out in public, fine. If you want to lie to the public and say, hey, we're doing this, but behind the scenes, hey, Texas, I'm actually going to Texas Tech. I have no issue with that. Behind the scenes, that's just dirty to me, and I don't understand it. I don't put a lot of blame on him. Early on, I did, but you got to realize, like you said, Joe, he's 17. I do have an issue with his parents, though. Like, why are you like, you should be leading your kid towards success with as many, backup plans as possible if something falls through. Like if it falls through at Texas Tech, he kind of burned every bridge he has now, and he probably has to go to a very low level school if he wants to go anywhere. So I just don't understand that way of thinking. And this was done apparently like late April, early May. So he's known for a very long time, and he's just been wasting Texas time, Ohio State's time, Michigan's time, when they could have been putting their assets and resources towards somebody else as well. I think that's the thing we don't think about. Like when they have these guys on the board, they're not just like, well, this is funny money, we'll come up with it later. Texas doesn't go about it. Some other schools might. They have already set aside, this is the NIL deal you're going to sign, and this is the money towards Felix Ojo, and they don't have that money to go towards someone else now. So that's my biggest issue with the whole thing.
Yeah, and there's it's there's this like the game is the game aspect, right? Like I get it, and part of the game of it is like not like holding your cards close to your chest, right? You got to know when to hold them. You don't want to catch your money at the table. Like I get all of that, but I think the level of I think back to like Nato Umazolo a few years back when he was committed to Texas, and like his parents took his phone away, like stop texting people, like you're signing with Texas. Like there's just different classes of parenting, and I'm not taking any shots at the kids' parents, right? Like it is what it is, right? You can parent your kid however you want. Nobody's gonna tell me how to parent my kids. I'm not going to tell you to parent your kids, but just seeing how different families handle it, it's just interesting to see the ways that folks go about it. Again, you're right about burning the bridges, right? If things don't work out at Texas Tech, it's not going to be Ohio State. It's probably not going to be Texas. Maybe A&M will have room for him in a couple of years. I don't know what that looks like, but ultimately, like the kid is going to make some life-changing money, right? Like, and that's either here or there. And that's the point of all this. And I will always advocate for student athletes and students being able to get what they feel like is fair market value. And I've said this on social media, like fair market value is whatever the heck somebody's willing to pay you, right? And so if Texas fans feel like they like Texas Tech overpaid for him, that's what fair market value is, because Texas Tech's collective or whoever it was able to put together that money and pay them what they thought they were worth. Like I said at the top, like they feel like Felix Ojo is a build around left tackle, and the going rate for like build around left tackles is somewhere in the range of $1.5 to $2 million. Just is what it is. So they paid him like that. They paid him what they thought market value was. Ultimately, I think for Texas, and we'll talk about this here in just a minute, like it sucks, right? We kind of had Ojo as one of those Texas needs to grab kind of kids in the class. I think Texas will end up being fine ultimately, but it does hurt, and it does. There's been a lack of momentum, I think, for Texas in this recruiting cycle. And I did some numbers, and they're actually probably fine, and I'll talk about it in just a minute. But like, the perception I think around Texas right now isn't great when it comes to recruiting, and I think this is another one of those moments where like that just kind of hits home, where like it's one of those moments where the perception takes another hit.
No, I agree. I think the perception has been Texas getting their butt kicked on the recruiting trail. And like you said, we'll talk about that. But another thing, I think you brought up an interesting point about roster management. And, Texas Tech seems to be going all in on like 2 to 3 players big time on the roster. Basketball, that definitely works. Football, I don't know, because no one's really ever done that where they're like chips all in on like 2 to 3 big time players. Texas Tech has also, been crystal ball to land like the number 1 guy in the 2027 class. They're probably going to pay him a lot of money as well if that does end up happening. I think they personally would be better served to go, lower four stars and get like 6 or 7 of them to build an actual football team. But we'll see how it works. It's interesting. Like it's more NFL now where everyone has a different price they want to set for different positions and different players. So you're going to see a lot of different experiments.
Yeah, and I think if Texas felt like Felix Ojo was the kind of player that they had to pay for, I guarantee you Texas would have ponied up the money. Like if Texas had all the information and felt like Felix Ojo was a guy that was worth being the highest paid player on the roster, I have zero doubts that Texas would have done. And this is not like sour grapes. Texas didn't want him, because Texas very clearly wanted him and they put all the chips in. But I think when push comes to shove, I'm pretty hesitant or pretty doubtful that if there's a player that Steve Sarkisian really wants and that this staff really wants, that Texas is going to get outbid, right? Texas is not in the position where they have to overpay to land some of these cats. And that's what the advantage of stacking these previous number 1 and top 5 classes is that you don't have to be the team that's pushing all of your chips in on one player that you feel like is a differentiator. You could spread it out a bit more. And so that to me is something that I'm curious to see how it plays out through the rest of the cycle. And ultimately, this also freed up a big chunk of change for Texas to take another stab at a kid that maybe has decided to go elsewhere.
Yeah, so that I agree. Every time Sark has like the number 1 guy, usually lands them. The only time I think that hasn't happened is DeCorian Moore. I think DeCorian Moore was that number 1 guy, and we just didn't land him. But the offer was similar. We were basically even with Oregon. He chose Oregon, so you can't really say anything about that.
Yeah.
But Colin Simmons, we needed. We got Anthony Hill. We got. So I think this guy isn't the number 1 guy, and we might as well just get into it. I phrase it as this, but Texas recruiting time to panic. I would say no, and I think the number 1 guy on the board, honestly, for this class is Tyler Atkinson. So to me, if we don't land that guy, and Braden Roos, who actually just decided to commit tomorrow, then I'll start to panic. But I'll let you hit on this, Gerald.
Yeah, I'm not the kind to panic in July, period, end of sentence, right? Like, that's just not who I am. And frankly, like some of the issues that Texas is facing right now in the recruiting trail is because they've been so successful in previous years, right? Like Caden Finley is one that folks are like, oh, Texas is losing out on legacies. They're down that bad, right? This is no offense to Caden Finley. The Texas wide receiver room is absolutely stacked. They signed multiple top 100 wide receivers last year. And Notre Dame, let's just be real, has a thinner wide receiver room. So his path to the field probably quicker there. Again, Texas has struggled in the last month. Like there's no 2 ways around it. And I think there are like some disconcerting signs. And I think things are getting weird. This is going to be a weird cycle, I think, for a lot of recruiting because folks are still trying to figure out the revenue sharing of it all. So I think this cycle and maybe even some of 2027 will be weird. Texas has, at least going into July when I did this numbers, Texas actually was in better position than they were this time a year ago, right? They had more 5-star, they had 2 5-stars to 1 a year ago. They had more 4-stars. They had fewer 3-stars, right? They had more commitments than last year. So Texas landed the number 1 class last year. I don't think they're going to land the number 1 class this year by any stretch of the imagination. But ultimately, like Texas, as it stands right now, is similarly positioned to where they were a year ago. December is a really long time, a long way away. There's, tea leaves around a running back that's moved his decision date back because Texas has kind of entered into the fray. So I think Texas is positioning itself for that late push. I think the other thing I think the concern I have is that like this is a very bipolar class. You've got a really strong top end and you've got a lot of guys that I think if they hit on some of these lower rated cats, they'll be really good. But like I don't know where like the middle of this class is. That's the thing that like is kind of in the back of my head got me thinking like where are those guys that are going to be your solid, 4-star kids that come in, develop, play their role. Like that's the thing that I've got a little bit of concern about.
No, I don't disagree with that. Like you said, we were 15th this time last year. We are 12th this year. So there's 3 concerns I do have. Linebacker, like I said, we have only Kosi Akapala in the class right now. You have to hit on Tyler Atkinson or Braden Roos tomorrow. One of those 2 has to be a Texas Longhorn, in my opinion, unless you get on someone late. Again, we're going to land 1 or 2 guys that we just didn't even hear about at this time. We did that with Justice Terry last year. Like, he was not in the mix for Texas last year at all. We didn't get on him until, like, basically end of October, early November. Tight end, I think you need to land one. I don't think you absolutely do because you have Emory Winston, you have Jordan Washington, you have Nick Townsend, you have Spencer Shannon. Like, that room's pretty good. It's not great. And if Jack Henry stays, like if he stays, you definitely don't need anyone. Offensive lineman, I think you do need one or two more guys there.
Yeah.
I like John Turntine. I think he's one of those guys that can play right away, but the other two are definitely developmental. I would like to land one more like guy that could slide in right away next year, and then another developmental guy. But other than that, I think the class overall is pretty good.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the thing that always the thing that I always come back to is Steve Sarkisian's quote from like his first full cycle when folks were asking in it was October and November, like, is it time to panic yet on recruiting? And he said, like, the guys that we're recruiting aren't committing yet. And we think about that 2022 cycle, Kelvin Banks and Cam Williams were both Oregon commits up until December, right? So there is time for things to shift. Texas has shown that they're able to come in at the last minute and flip some of these cats and flip some of these guys. And I think we'll see some 2022 in this, but ultimately, I think, I've talked about how, like, I feel like Sark and his staff really prioritize specific position groups per recruiting class. And this is very clearly a like trenches class, and it's not sexy. It's not the sexiest thing in the world. Texas is very clearly prioritizing defensive line. Kenny Baker, a lot of us, including me, owe Kenny Baker an apology because we did not know his game. That dude is recruiting lights out. Texas is doing really well along the edges as well. And then the offensive line, Felix Ojo obviously is a massive hit, but landing John Turntine was huge. And I really like the two developmental guys that they have. I think they can really develop into something. So I really think there is, this is not going to be the sexiest class. It's not going to be the Arch Manning class. It's not going to be the Jamie French and the Xavier Filsamy classes, right? That's part of, I think, the other side of this is a lot of the commitments Texas has that are really good players. You even mentioned Okpala. Like, he is a really, really good linebacker, but it's not a sexy thing to see, right? You want to land these big names on the offensive skill positions, the defensive skill positions. And Texas is missing on some of those. And that, again, is something to watch and something, but I am not panicked at all. Texas has been a late grower under Steve Sarkisian. It's just kind of part and parcel of what the game is now.
Yeah, like running back, we could land none this cycle, and I'd feel fine with it. Like, we have so many damn running backs in that room. My only thing is experience. By that time next year, they'll all have experience, so I'm not really that concerned about it. Tight end, kind of the same thing. It's more about experience than it is the talent in that room. And you're right. It's offensive, defensive line is clearly the concern on the coaching staff. That's why they've gone all in. And then linebacker, because you're going to lose Anthony Hill. So you need to get one or two linebackers in this class. That's honestly my biggest concern is linebacker at this point. But if we land someone, like if we land Braden Roos and Tyler Atkinson both in this class, like this is a really damn good class.
Yeah, either of them, I'd be happy. Both would be, I'd be through the roof if Texas landed both. But either one of those guys is a guy who I think could come in and play immediately if they need to. Texas has some dudes at linebacker. I think they might end up portaling for one in the offseason, depending on how things pan out. But like, I have been accused in previous lives and on previous podcasts and live streams being a sunshine pumper. And I get it. Like, I have kind of a naturally optimistic outlook on some of these things, but like ultimately Texas has been in this position under Steve Sarkisian multiple times. And multiple times they've surged late. That, again, the 2022 class, last year's class, both of those classes, they were in this similar position and ultimately ended up with elite classes, right? That 2022 class was what built the back-to-back college football playoff runs. And that was not a great class when it was July, August time period. So I'm not panicked. There are enough priors where I'm giving the staff the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I mean, just to go through a couple quick ones, like guys that we flipped late or just got in late: Justice Terry, Anthony Hill, Ty Anthony Smith, Cam Williams, Kelvin Banks, Cade Phillips, Grayson Littleton. Like, Terrence Brooks was the day of. Like, I didn't even think that wasn't even on anyone's radar. Then 24 hours, like, oh, I think Terrence Brooks is going to sign with Texas. We're like, what? We haven't even talked about this kid. So this class, we're going to get two guys, in my opinion, that we don't even know about right now, or they're at a different school and we jumped in late. Something's going to happen.
And this is not me saying that Texas is going to land the linebacker that's committing tomorrow, but that's exactly the case. Like, I got a message from one of my buddies like, hey, there's this kid committing tomorrow and they're smoked to Texas. Like, I've literally done zero research on this kid. I need to look into it, right? So like, those are those types of situations that Texas continues to find itself in. And that's, again, this staff has been really, really good at saying, okay, this didn't pan out or this isn't going the right way. Let's pivot. Let's push our chips in this spot. And it's working out. Again, back to back of top five classes. I'm not panicked.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird to me. I actually do think we land him tomorrow because there's been all this smoke, and then all of a sudden, like today, it was just random. He's like, "I'm going to commit tomorrow." I was like, if I'm hearing a lot of smoke to Texas and he's choosing to commit tomorrow when he's been rumored to Tennessee for, it's kind of like Felix Ojo. He was rumored to us for 4 months, but never committed to us. Then Texas Tech, this kid's been rumored to Tennessee for 4 months, and then all of a sudden smoke, and now he's committing. So would not shock me if he goes to the right UT, because UT Tennessee, that's not the right UT. What? Oh, yeah, I was going to read this. Why would you expect the same result? Damn, David Keith Williams is jumping in. Why would you expect the same results, although the rules have changed? Seems like Texas is going strictly by the rules and most aren't. I think there is some truth to that, but I don't think most. I would disagree with the most part. I don't think most schools aren't going by the rules. I do agree. There's probably 3 or 4 teams that are pushing the limits in their group of 4 that, but I don't know that Texas Tech is doing that.
I don't know either. And frankly, like I've been pretty vocal about the fact that I don't think the clearinghouse is going to have the teeth to do anything to enforce it. Because again, I said it off the top, like market rate is whatever somebody's going to pay you. It's like, how do you prove what market rate is? Like, and that's just not how the game is. It's not how the game is going to be played. I don't think, right? Again, I don't have sources. That's just me knowing how the NCAA has handled these things in the past. Again, it's an outside agency doing it. It's an accounting firm that's doing it. It's like, maybe they'll have something else going on, but ultimately, like, I think that, again, I think Texas is going to be fine. I think if you think that Texas is going to lose this based on money whipping, I just don't agree with that. Because it's, again, the rules have changed, but ultimately, like, Texas has put itself in the right position at every turn. I have zero doubts. And again, I will be the first one if Texas sucks when all the chips are down to be like, my bad, I was wrong. But ultimately, like, I just don't think that that's going to be the case. It just it doesn't bear itself out. It doesn't feel like reality to me. But again, I've been accused of being a sunshine pumper. Tennessee Longhorn may think I'm a sunshine pumper, and that's fine. You are well within your doubts. I realize that. I'm an optimist in a lot of ways, but it just doesn't seem like it's panning out. That Texas Tech, again, they're trying to get things in before the clearinghouse gets set up. They're structuring their deals in a way in which I think it'll be able to rightfully get through it. Again, there's a lot left to play. I'll say it like that.
Yeah, I honestly think the clearinghouse is going to be pretty laxative on most deals, unless it's something crazy. Like if someone's getting $3 million and they're not doing a commercial or anything like that for something, and they're going to be like, you got to do something. You can't just do nothing for this money. You got to actually have a commercial, have a legitimate setup with the real business, stuff like that. But I don't think they're going to be like, oh, this deal's for $5,000 for some kid and he doesn't have anything set up. I think they're going to let stuff like that pass by, honestly. I don't think they're going to care about that sort of thing.
No, not at all.
David Keith Williams says, to me, a successful offensive line class is at least 2 difference makers in the class, preferably 3. The good thing about the 26 recruiting class is that, in my opinion, Texas has 2 legitimate difference makers, John Turntine and Nick Robertson. I liked Max Wright, too, long-term. Like, I think he's got, like, it's funny. You line up Max Wright and Felix Ojo's measurables. They're the exact same person. The only difference is the tape. And the tape isn't, like, they aren't worlds apart. Let's say that. I personally am fine with Texas not signing Ojo for that amount because I'm also a Yankees fan. And they're going to be like, Texas ain't a Yankees fan. Well, I'm glad the Yankees didn't sign Juan Soto for $815 million because I don't think he's worth $815 million when Aaron Judge is only worth $360, according to
how are the Lakers going to be next year, Matthew? I got to ask you that.
I will say this. I do like LeBron, but I do not like the Lakers. I despise the Lakers, so we'll never root for them. He also says, I do think the duo of Braden Roos at middle linebacker and Kosi Akapala at outside linebacker will eventually be a dominant linebacker duo for the Longhorns. Roos is a great middle linebacker recruit, but I prefer Atkinson. I think Braden Roos, like if you just said linebacker, he's a better overall linebacker, but I think Atkinson's a better overall football player. I think he can do a lot of everything, whereas I think Roos is just a perfect middle linebacker for Texas. That's why I'd want both of them because they do fit 2 totally different roles.
Yeah. And I think is it Roos or Rouse? I'm like doubting myself on the pronunciation, but like
that's a good question. I don't know either.
We'll call him Braden for the purposes of this discussion, right? That's what I can pronounce. Like he is a guy when you listen to Texas coaches, they talk about guys they like that have positional versatility and Roos, whatever you want to call him. He's played offense, defense, multiple positions, wide receiver, tight end, safety, edge, linebacker. So like I like a guy who's got that level of range when you're looking at somebody to play your middle linebacker spot. Because, and this is no shots at Anthony Hill. Like one of the gaps that Anthony Hill we saw last year against Ohio State that they kind of exploited are some of his struggles in pass protection. So a guy who's got some pass protection reps, some pass coverage reps under his belt, I like that from a kid. He's an athlete. He's a 3-sport athlete. He's a basketball and a track kid. So like, I like those kinds of players at linebacker, especially. Again, I think Texas is going to land 2 of the 3. They've already got Okpala in the barn, which is great. Again, Atkinson, elite athlete. There's a reason why Tennessee's pulling all the stops for this Rouse kid, whatever you want to call him. I haven't, again, this came to me like an hour before we came on the air, and I had to put my kids to bed, so I didn't have a chance to do a ton of research into it. But from what I've seen, the cursory research I've done, I really like his game. I really like his versatility. Good feet, good body, aggressive. I really like that, but that's another conversation.
No, he's a very good football player. I mean, 247, I believe, has him as like the 65th best player composite wise. So, I mean, another top 100 kid. And that's the thing, guys, you want to land as many top 50, top 100, top 150 kids, because most of the time that's where you get your difference makers is the top 150. So definitely a difference maker.
And I've said it before, and this kind of goes to David Keith DKW. I don't know what we want to call you, but like, I think going to your point on the last comment you left about Max Wright, like, I would rather Texas have a good line class and worry about the skill positions. Easier to find him in the portal. I mean, let's just be really honest. Like, Steve Sarkisian put Mac Jones in the first round of the NFL draft behind a really good offensive line and some really good skill players. Like and Texas is not going to be in that position at the quarterback spot, right? So like Texas going all in on guys like, again, John Turntine, on guys like Max Wright, guys like I just blanked on his name. Nick Robertson, right? All those guys, like Texas pushing their chips in on those kinds of guys. Like I'm an old school guy. SEC football, if you ask anybody, one on the line. So like that to me is the right path for this class.
Yeah. So Braden Rouse commits tomorrow. Jalen Lott also commits tomorrow. That's expected to be Oregon, but I think Texas stays in there long term. He's obviously really good football player. And a legacy, but that doesn't seem to mean anything that much anymore. So we'll see what happens. Lamar Brown's the 10th. That's going to be A&M or LSU. I think it probably ends up being LSU, but I think A&M wins his commitment to the 10th. Jamarion Carlton is a guy I think Texas needs to land at the defensive line position. Yeah. I think he ends up at Texas because and I was watching the Felix Ojo announcement live, and he was throwing up the horns the whole time. And then when it did flip to Texas Tech, he posted a thing like, oh, maybe I should go and join him with Texas Tech with the jersey. But I think he ends up at Texas right now. Again, things can change because they change quickly. Samari Matthews is down to South Carolina or Texas. That's the 11th. I think he also picks Texas. Caden Prothro, I think he's going to Georgia, even though Georgia has 2 tight ends already. I think they're going to get another one. Why not add another one? And then Heezy Kent is the 12th. I think I don't know. I think it's a coin flip here. Texas isn't highest NIL wise, but I think he loves Texas. So he could end up there. But I think Texas lands out of these, 7 guys? I think we land 2 of them. Gerald, we were off last time. I think we said 4 or 5, and we only got 3. So I'm going to say 2 out of these 7 for now, but we'll see.
I'll go 3. Okay. I'm feeling froggy.
I could see Jalen Lott. I could see that. That would be a somewhat of a surprise, but I think could happen. Caden Finley, for the last 2 weeks, I knew he wasn't going to go to Texas. It sucks, but it is what it is.
And Caden Finley putting out his statement after everything that went down the day before, like you absolutely know that was probably not like the way that they've gone about their process. We weren't expecting any sort of weird dramatics, especially knowing his dad, right? But I feel like that statement was almost kind of like a twist of the knife a little bit at the previous day's events, which is just I love to see that.
Yeah, I think Jermichael probably wasn't too happy, or people around him probably weren't too happy with him throwing the Texas hat down. So I think hey, you need to release a statement, because first off, Jermichael loves Texas. Just go on his Instagram. It's either his sons or Texas. And that's the thing. He still has the picture up of Caden getting the helmet place, being like, "You're up next." I'm like, you got to take that down now, because he's not up next.
it's still a cool moment, regardless of that, like of the situation, right? It's still a cool moment. Yeah, Jermichael Finley is all about Texas. This is how nerdy I am. This time last year, when the college football video game was released, they had like an online tournament between rivals. And if this old head of me, he and Jaworski Lane, they're cousins, by the way. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're cousins, half brothers. They're related, like weird relation. Anywho, they were playing online and they were both playing Texas and Texas. Jermichael's all about Texas, and I love it. Again, but as a dad, like letting your kid like pave his own path and make his own way, like
yeah,
it's tough. It's the toughest thing in the world. My kid is like making choices now, and I'm like, this is weird, but like ultimately, it's cool that he did that and let his son make his own way, and I think it's awesome.
No, 100%. So guys, if you know anyone that would like to sponsor this show or any show here, please contact us at sponsorships@vocfb.com today. This is the Win agency that sponsors the Michigan show. Again, you can sponsor any show here. Get your business, product, service, or personal brand to the next level by partnering with the voice of college football. Let's discuss how you can also reach your target market. Check out the experience of one of our current partners on the screen, the Win agency. We really appreciate you guys doing that. Again, sponsorships@vocfb.com today. Thank you guys for that. Also, Amazon Prime Day is coming up tomorrow, last to, I think, the 10th or the 11th. So why not use the Amazon link in the description? It is free. It does not cost anything. All it does is put a little bit of change into Mark Rogers' pocket. And here is Mark Rogers talking about that.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the Voice of College Football.
There we go on that. And last but not least, we do have a website, guys. So please check that out. Just type in Voice of College Football on Yahoo, Google, Bing, whatever search engine you want to use. And you will see our website right there. Check out the latest articles from the team channels that we have. We really appreciate when you guys do that as well. Next up, this topic, I'm interested to see what everyone says in the comments. We're all Texas fans here, so some of you may not like it. Is Texas the most overrated team in the SEC? I say this because I have my Athlon magazine sitting in front of me. There's a lot of things in this magazine that are interesting, including team rankings, and we'll get to that later. But overall, Gerald, what do you think about just the media circle around Texas this year? Do they deserve to be ranked number one in a lot of these preseason polls? Do they deserve to be national championship favorites? If not, why not?
I think I'm trying to not to talk out of both sides of my mouth here because there's a lot, right? There's a lot to unpack, and that's always like I ramble, right? But first, I think it's a product of not knowing who anybody is this year, as far as like we don't know who really any of these elite teams are going to be. There's so many questions all over the country, right? What's Georgia going to look like? What's Alabama going to look like? Clemson, Penn State are probably the only two schools that I think we know for sure what they're going to look like this year. And even Penn State has some questions. They lost their elite tight end that basically touched the ball on every play, right? Like there are still questions there. And so I think part of why Texas is kind of bubbling to the surface is because there are so many questions about everybody this year. There's so many questions about quarterbacks. There's so many questions about reloading. There's a lot of uncertainty. But the one thing that I think folks are certain of is how well Texas has stacked these recruiting classes and the positions at which these players are at. Right. And so part of that is like the Arch Manning of it all. I think people are ready to see Arch Manning ascend. I think people feel pretty confident about how Texas has recruited on both sides of the ball. And so that's part of the thing. But by virtue of Texas being number one in so many freaking polls, so many things, like it's hard to say that anybody else is more overrated than Texas because Texas hasn't really done like much on the field to prove that they're the number one rated. Like I have hated all of this conversation, On 3, Ari Wasserman, all of those guys have Texas picked to win the national championship. Like, it's very weird to me. I started to come around a little bit more now that I'm seeing like the mathematical models that like Texas. DFB Winning Edge put out their numbers last week, had Texas number 1. I'm starting like, do I believe? Like, I always make fun of people for arguing with math when they get mad at these like mathematical models. Like, oh, you have a bias. Like, first of all, every mathematical model is going to have a bias based upon what the person that made it values. Like, that's part of life. But ultimately, like, I'm somebody that makes fun of people who argue with the mathematical models. And a lot of them are starting to have Texas in similar positions to what the people have Texas. And I'm of a vintage that knows how overrated people find, like, people overrate Texas annually. Right? It's just part of what it is, but the math doesn't always bear it out. The math is starting to bear it out. And that's the thing that I'm like, do I actually want to buy into this? I've still been hurt too many times. Again, I was around, I lived in Oklahoma for the Charlie Strong years. So like, that was terrible. It's like, I'm still not ready to buy in all the way, but now that like the mathematical models are starting to bear it out, I'm like a little less skeptical.
Yeah, I think what I've come to realize is like every season is its own separate entity. Instead of, I kind of in my mind lump them all together and think, well, this team won the national championship, so this means this team can't. And what I mean by that is Texas does have a lot of questions, but this is its own separate year. If I'm not putting Texas up against the 2019 LSU Tigers right now,
No.
I'm not putting Texas up against last year's Ohio State team that won the national championship. I'm putting Texas up against this field currently and what we know about this field currently. And right now, I think this field's very questionable. Like we've talked about on this channel, 7 of the top 10 teams in odds are replacing their quarterback. When we get into these Athlon rankings as our next topic, we're going to go through the top 10 in some of these and realize, man, they have a lot of question marks as well. So when you look at the talent on the roster, what is coming back, the coaching staff and everything, I think Texas should be in the top 4 to win the national championship. Personally, in my mind, I have 4 teams right now that I'm going to decide who's going to win the national championship. Could that expand? Absolutely, it could. For right now, I'm going to have Texas, Clemson, Penn State, and Alabama. Those are my 4 teams I'm going to decide from to who's going to win the national championship. So we'll have to see. And it's going to be very interesting whether or not Texas can do that. Again, do they have a lot of hype? Do I think some of it is a little bit too much? Yeah, I think for Arch Manning, it is too much. That's the one thing I keep realizing. Like, all these teams, like people, Joel Klatt has him second, I believe, quarterback rankings. Someone else had him either 2 or 3. Athlon, I'll just skip to this real quick, has him number 1, the Texas room as a whole. So yes, do I think that gets a little bit too much pub? Yeah, but I think Texas as a whole is properly rated, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think there's, and again, shout out to our friend in the chat, David Keith Williams. I almost said your name wrong, but like, Texas has recruited really well. It's like what I said off the top, right? Like, there's so many questions around so many teams this year, and Texas has loaded stock in every spot. Now, do we know what they will do on the field? Have we seen them? No. But from a talent perspective, we haven't seen the blue chip ratio, but Texas is going to be one of the top 3 teams. Probably looking at Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Oregon. Like, those are going to be probably your top 5, right? And so Texas is in there. So I think, David, you're right. Like, there is something to be said for Texas being in the top 10 in every position group just based on talent. Again, I'm somebody that likes, like, I need to see what you can do on the field because I've been burned by Texas recruiting classes being really good and really top heavy in the past, but I don't think these classes in these rooms are constructed in the same way. But again, I've been hurt before. I don't know if I'm ready to be hurt again, but ultimately I think you're right. Like, there are so many talented players in each and every position room for Texas that it's hard to feel like they're not they're not appropriately rated in some way. But again, my PTSD won't let me say that with my whole chest, and I apologize to everybody watching.
No, I think that's fair. And this is interesting. The 2025 Texas Longhorns offense absolutely cannot be compared to the 2019 LSU offense. However, the 25 Texas defense can legitimately be compared to any defense in recent history. I would disagree with that because we haven't seen it yet. I can't compare something that I haven't seen. And last year's defense was really good. I'm not even sure they're going to be that good because let's be honest here. This team last year allowed 8 touchdown passes and 21 or 22 interceptions. Like, that's historically a really, really good pass defense. So let's say the pass defense takes a step back, but the rush defense takes a step up. You basically break even. Do I think we can be better than last year's defense? Yeah, I do think we could be, but I need to see it first.
It's hard for me to say that a defense losing Jahdae Barron and Andrew Makuba is going to be good as last year's unit. Like that to me, like, and again, Texas has recruited really, really well. They've got a ton of guys there. Like, you lose the Thorpe Award winner and you're going to take a step back. It is what it is. And that's not a shot at the guy still on campus. Jahdae Barron probably should have been in the Thorpe conversation the previous 2 years, and just people overlooked him. And so finally last year he got the hype that he deserved and won the award. Like, you lose the guy who's the best defensive back in college football, you're going to take a step back. You lose a guy like Andrew Makuba, who came in and was a trendsetter, who completely knocked out Georgia's quarterback in that game, right? Like, that is a guy who you have to replace. Now, there is talent. The guys on the field, the guys in the locker room are supremely talented, and I think they can live up to that. But like you said, Matthew, we haven't seen him yet. So that's hard for me to fathom.
David Keith Williams, I completely agree with this. I think what stands out now is that Coach Sarkisian and his coaching staff develops the roster, and they also maximize the production of the roster. Maximize the production, I'm not going to say they're 100% on but developing, I completely agree with that 100%. Like, we have the most NFL draft picks the last 2 years. So I don't think you can argue that. I do think there's times where they misuse some players. I like last year, I think they figured it out late, because they figured out in the Ohio State game with Jaden Blue. That guy should have been used. Like, he should have had 70 catches last year. He's a total mismatch with linebackers, and we just got on that train, in my opinion, way too late. And we used him as a running back, and he had issues fumbling the ball when he was a running back. Out of the backfield catching, he honestly didn't. It was most of his fumbles came when he was a running back.
Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right. And I think the thing that always jumps out to me, again, I'm of a certain vintage, I'll say it like that. The gray hairs in my chin are showing up, right? Like, I think comparing like Anthony Hill and Malik from a few years ago, right? Comparing those two guys, similar stories, elite in-state linebackers, right? Texas lands them both, and you're seeing the divergent trajectories, right? Where Anthony Hill has continued to be better, continue to grow, continue to be, the elite guy. Folks are looking at him as one of the top linebackers in the country. Again, Texas fans enjoy every snap, because he will be gone after this year. So enjoy every snap. But like, ultimately, like, when you look at those guys, right, like comparing those two similar ranked, like elite guys, top guys in the state, like two divergent. Texas is doing a better job of developing kids than we've seen in 10 or 15 years.
Okay. So we have to answer this question. If Texas is not the most overrated team in the SEC, who is the most overrated team? That's how we'll leave this discussion.
I was not prepared for that, and this feels unfair. I don't know where they're ranked, but like, I feel like LSU maybe, because I just don't trust their coaching staff in that way. Like, they outthought themselves in a lot of moments last year, and so like, they were good when they ran the ball, and then they just didn't. And so like, I just don't trust that coaching staff. So I think that's probably, like, again, gun to my head, zero research. That's where I put my flag. Again, LSU fans come from me in the comments, whatever, but like, that's where I'm going.
I completely agree. That's the team I was on. So a lot of these national rankings, they're overranked. And according to Athlon, they're the 7th best team in the country. I do not see that at all with them. I think offensively, they are what they have been the last 2 years, which is an elite offense. And defensively, when are you going to be a good defense? Like, you haven't been a good defense under Brian Kelly the whole time he's been there. So until you show me that, that's the thing with Texas. At least Texas has shown me things of like, oh, well, they showed me this, so they can be this. LSU has not shown me they can be a good defense under Brian Kelly. So guess what? I don't think they're going to be a good defense under Brian Kelly. And I actually think it's a bad thing. I know it sounds crazy, but I said it once he got hurt last year when I was doing the SEC show at the Voice of College Football. Harold Perkins coming back healthy is actually a bad thing for LSU, because they have no idea how to use him, and they base their whole defense around him. So that is a bad thing. Until they figure out how to use him, which is just let him go, let him be free, and let him create havoc, they're not going to be good defensively.
It's so wild to me that like that player, he's such a positionless player. Like, how do you utilize him? And Kelly's system and his preferences are not having those kind of just like go find ball, see ball guys. So it's a very weird mismatch there.
Yeah, 100%. Like, they were better with Whit Weeks. When Whit Weeks was in at Harold Perkins' position, which is middle linebacker, guess what? They were a much better defense. You can look at the numbers. They were horrific with Harold Perkins at middle linebacker, and they were bad with Whit Weeks at middle linebacker, or average at least. So that team, until they become like a top 40 defense, they're not going to win anything of significance. And right now they were like 60, 70th in most categories last year. So they're going to have to prove another 15, 20% for me to believe they can win the SEC, which is they're third right now, which means you're in the running. If you're in the top 4 in the SEC, you're in the running to win the SEC. And I will address this troll comment. Texas needs to be better. A&M best in the state right now. No. We proved that last year when we played them. No.
We're winning June national championships again in College Station. It's fun.
Yeah, they tend to do that. 8-4 always does that. But I can blame Texas for the Felix kid, but at some point the bag must be dropped on UT. Listen, Penn State Sports Talk. I know, I've seen you. You're trolling. I know. Perkins playing linebacker. Yeah, thank you for the comment. But I know you're trolling. Perkins playing linebacker. I mean, yeah, he's going to play middle linebacker, I think, still. Until they figure out how to use him, I stand by that. I don't think LSU is going to be very good. So let's jump into this. So Athlon Sport rankings, they have Texas as the number 1 team in the SEC. I'm going to do a rundown, too, of the position groups where they rank in the SEC, and we may even throw in some national ones a little bit later. But Texas, number 1 quarterback, number 1 quarterback room, number 1 running back room, number 4 wide receiver, number 4 offensive line, and then this is just crazy. Number 1 defensive line, number 1 linebacker room, number 1 defensive back room. So, Gerald, what do you think of those rankings as a whole?
I don't want to like dump on Texas because I'm a Texas fan, right? I'm a Texas grad. The diploma's right behind me, but like it just seems wild to me. As good as I think Arch Manning is going to be, he started 2 games. Like there are quarterbacks that have more like skins on the wall, right? There are more quarterbacks that have like I would take the cat from South Carolina, right? Over Art, like based on like what Texas like what we've seen on the field, right? There's so stinking many good players in the SEC, and just Arch hasn't done anything. The running back room, I think there's a lot of guys there that are really good. I don't know. I've said it before. I don't know if Texas has a second pitch at that running back position, but I think there's a lot of really good players there. But again, it's just so weird. Like wide receivers being 4th, like the defensive line, I think is probably the one that like, I'm just like, and I think Colin Simmons and like Ethan Burke are probably floating that average quite a bit. Like you have Colin Simmons as your like number 1 guy, and then there's a pretty big gap between a lot of the edge rushers there. So like I think that's probably floating the average a bit there. Linebacker, I'm fine with, right? I think Texas has the best linebacker room probably in the country, if not in the SEC. So that's again another conversation for another day. But like I just don't. It feels weird to me. It's the only way to say it. It's just like, I want everybody to pump the brakes. Like, I think this is a supremely talented Texas team. I have not seen jack from most of these guys, right? Like Texas has recruited at an elite level for the last 5 cycles. And that's why they're in the position they're in right now. But there is so much unproven stuff, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Like we just don't stinking know who or what they're going to be. So like that to me, like based on recruiting evaluations and recruiting rankings, makes sense to me. Based on what we've seen on the field, it doesn't check out. It doesn't hold water.
Yeah, so defensive line, I don't hate that much because I think it was either Texas, Alabama, or Oklahoma in the running for that number 1 spot, in my opinion, in the SEC. I think I'm fine with Texas being 1. Defensive back that's just too hard for me because Malik Muhammad is who he was last year, and then Kobe Black is 25% better than he was last year. I don't think we're the number 1 defensive back room in the SEC. I just don't. I think Alabama is returning a lot. I think they're going to be pretty good defensively. I think Georgia has a lot returning other than Malachi Starks that leads me to believe that they'll be pretty good on the back end as well. But not hateful. The running back one, to me, I just don't understand because if you're just going based off talent, I could see it, but guys, you have to account for injury here. Like in my opinion, our top 3 running backs are Trey Wisner, CJ Baxter, and Christian Clark. I think those are the 3 best backs on the team. Guess what? 2 of them are coming back from major injuries, Achilles, and then like a whole knee reconstruction in the one guy. So I don't think you could put them 1. Like I think Texas A&M with Le'Veon Moss is probably better. I know he's coming back, but guess what? His surgery is not as bad as CJ Baxter's. I think Florida is a very underrated backfield with I know Jaden Ball, and then I forget the other running back they have. I think they honestly probably starting the season should be number 1 because of the talent, and none of those guys have health concerns. Alabama always has some studs in the backfield. And then Oklahoma has Jay Knott, who might be the number one running back in the whole SEC this year. So I disagree with that one the most. The defensive line I could see. Linebacker, I definitely see. I completely agree with that. Then wide receiver, no line, I'm fine with because of the talent. And then when we get to these national ratings, like you cannot have Texas the number one defensive line in the country. You just can't. Like Clemson returns Peter Woods and TJ Parker. Those are going to be 2 top 10 picks in the draft this year. So unless we have Peter Woods hiding somewhere in the defensive tackle room, I think Clemson is the number one defensive line in the country. I think Alabama, again, they have a case in the SEC. They also have a case in the national rankings. Is Texas a top 3 defensive line in the country? I could see that. Top 5 for sure, but top 3, if you want to argue that, I'm fine with. But number 1's a little crazy to me. And then running backs, I don't understand just in the whole country, Texas is the 3rd best running back group. I just, that's the one position group I am just completely off base with compared to literally everyone else, apparently, because we had the Ohio State guys on here. Garrison said he agrees they're a top 3 running back room. I don't see it. I just do not see it.
I think it's like talent versus like what is going to, you and I have like, it's always harder to see like your own stuff for good or for ill. The one of the national rankings that really weirds me out is the quarterbacks, because like I'm going to just go ahead and say it. I think Cade Klubnik is going to be the best quarterback in the country next year, period, end of sentence. Like what we saw from him toward the end of the year, what he did in the playoff game against Texas. I think Cade Klubnik is going to be a Heisman finalist. And I just like, again, I think, and this is no shots at Arch Manning or any other quarterback in the country, I think Cade Klubnik is really freaking good, and we saw what he can do. And I think Clemson has finally figured out how to utilize him in his fullest game, letting him use some of his legs more. Like there were games where he just put Clemson on his back and carried him to a win last year. And like I just think if you have questions about the supporting staff around him, I understand that. But I think of the quarterbacks that we've seen, like I think Cade Klubnik is probably far and away the best returner that we've got next year.
No, I agree. Like early on, I'm just going to let you guys have the sneak peek right now on July 7th. Like I have Clemson beating us in the national championship. Like I think that team's a very good football team, and they're just well balanced. Like they have a good quarterback. The running back is the biggest question, in my opinion, but they have good wide receivers. We saw that in Austin. They have a good offensive line returning. They could have one of the 2 or 3 best offensive linemen coming off the board. Their defensive line is stacked. They have Sammy Brown at the linebacker position. Their secondary's okay, not great. Like they're a very well-balanced team. And then the guy on the sideline, I've seen win multiple national championships. So that is why right now they're my favorite. And I just don't understand. Like I said, our running back room is my biggest question for us. I love our defensive line. I love our linebackers. Secondary is probably my second biggest question. I think our offensive line is going to be pretty good. I think Arch Manning is going to be pretty good. But to be basically number 1 across the board in every category except wide receiver and offensive line is pretty crazy to me in the SEC.
Yeah, it's wild. It is wild. Again, I'm glad that folks have the faith in Texas. And again, I'm starting to see the mathematical models come to mirror what the subjective models do. So like I'm starting to lose some of the doubt, but again, I've been burned so many times. I don't think I'll ever get there fully, but ultimately like I have faith in this coaching staff. I have faith in their evaluations. They've done a really good job stacking talent. Like all of the things that we say about national championship contenders are true of Texas. And so ultimately, like, I think it's fine having them where they're at. It's fine having them in these spots. The expectations are going to be really high. Folks are going to be really dumb on the internet if Texas loses a game, but that's just going to happen regardless. But ultimately, like, it's fine. I think Texas is going to be really, really good this year, but just having them as the number 1 flat out in the SEC is just still pretty weird to me.
No, David Keith Williams, I agree. I think Texas is a top 3 line in the country, and I think there's an argument to be made for the best in the SEC. Like, basically, Gerald and I are just flipping opinions. I'm lower on the defensive back room. He's lower on the defensive line room for different reasons. So, like, at worst, we're not saying they're, like, highly overrated, but if you gave me, like, the 5th best defensive line in the country, I would have agreed with that. If you gave me the 4th best, defensive backfield in the country, I would agree with that as well. Like, I just don't see number 1. And that's the thing, like across the board, it seems like everyone's putting Texas as a slam dunk national championship pick. And I just don't see that because I don't think this year there is a slam dunk national championship pick.
And that's it right there. Like, that's it. And I think that is part of why it's easy to put Texas there, right? Because everybody wants to buy into the Texas narratives, right? And I'm fine. Like, it's great. Have all eyes on Texas. And I think my big check, right? The thing that like gets me deep down on my deep downs on the defensive line and why I just have is like Texas was so freaking aggressive with defensive tackles in the portal, right? Like they did not love what they had on campus. They brought in a bunch. They're trying to moneyball it again. Now, Texas is 3 years running for figuring it the heck out, but they don't have those young guys that we were looking to be the next man up, right? Texas has had the next man up for 3 straight years on campus and supplemented that with 3 or 4 guys from the portal. They went just 3 or 4 guys in the portal, and we're not sure who the young guy is on campus that's going to be the next man up. So that's the thing that's like got the check back in like the deep down of my deep downs. But if, like you said, Cole Brevard or whoever, like Texas landed a bunch of stinking really good tackles in the portal, like I'm fine with it.
No, I agree. And that's the thing too. Like I'm looking at running backs, and Louisville's ranked 7th. I think Reuben Owens is there, and when he was healthy, he was a pretty good football player. So I mean, there's a lot of these. Michigan at 10 is insane to me. Like Marshall and Justice Haynes should be in the top 5. Like I'm going to be honest. I would trade those 2 for our top 2 right now because of injuries. That's all I'm saying is at that position, it's injuries for me. Like if Christian Clark's completely healthy and CJ Baxter's completely healthy, I would be making the argument Texas does have the best running back room. Guess what? They're not. And Achilles, what you have to push off of every freaking down as a running back, I don't really love that. Having a knee injury like that, I don't really love that. So that's my biggest issue.
Yeah, it's we'll have to see how it works out. I just don't. I don't know. I've been scarred. I'm sorry. I've been scarred.
That's true too. Like I've been through enough to where we get hyped up every offseason, and not even for national championship, but like Big 12 champion, and we just never get there. So definitely some scars. Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps us out. We are here every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, breaking it down for you with whether that's breaking news, previews, recruiting news, stuff like that. We really appreciate you guys being here. Again, hit that like button, subscribe. Also, check out us on Twitter. That is my Twitter right there. This is also Gerald's Twitter and Blue Sky, as well as his Longhorn Pod, which is on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, wherever you can find podcasts, just like the Voice of College Football. You can find us on there as well. And we will see you guys next week talking about breaking news again, recruiting news, whatever. Maybe, hey, we may have a new multiple new recruits to talk about at this time. Also, I'm thinking in the next 1 or 2 weeks, try to get the Florida guys on here because I think that's a much anticipated matchup. I'm excited to talk about going down to the swamp. So please, guys, hit that like button, subscribe. And as always, hook 'em.
Hook 'em.